Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Understanding Recovery Podcast. Today we have Brian and Drew and Lou. Good to have you guys. In this podcast, we talk about how Taoist philosophy, Taoist thought, helps us form a better understanding of the higher power. It does, for me, it's one of those things that either the Tao speaks to you or it does not. You know, there's not much in between that I have found. And I love the way that literature written 2,500 years ago is still just as relevant and speaks to me in ways that other literature does not. We are not Taoists. We're not talking about taking on a new religion. What we're talking about is thought that at the time was helpful to them and is helpful now, just like Jesus's teachings are helpful, just like some Buddhist teachings, some Rumi's teachings, all these different teachers. I believe, and what I'm realizing, they're all the finger pointing at the moon. They're not the moon itself. And the Tao Te Ching, which we mostly talk about, is another one of those fingers pointing. Right now, we're going through Thomas Merton's interpretation of the Chuang Tzu, which Chuang Tzu's thought to be a student of Lao Tzu. We're going through these teachings now. And the story we'll be talking about today is the great and small, found on page 87. Before we start the story, I want to talk about two things. One, a resource at buddyc.org for you. And I've been talking about this for a few weeks, and I'm going to hit it another week or two, and that's sobermeditations.org. I set up an app for sober meditations back first of the pandemic, and there's over 400 meditations there, 9 on each step. And I use it with sponsees to talk about the different aspects of every step. And there's other meditations there too. They get a lot of listens, but the issue is they're doing away with the app that I use. So they will be accessed in the future. And I don't think you can even download the app now in the app store, but my app still works. Eventually, they're going to stop working. And those meditations can be found at sobermeditations.org. They're all there. Actually, this site is where the app pulls from. It pulls from this site. So they're all categorized the same way and organized that way too. So we'll just have the webpage in the future. Second thing we want to talk about is a synchronistic moment. And Lou, you have one for us today, sir?
Yeah, I think it's one that we've probably all experienced in one degree or another. And it's probably one of those things that happens most frequently. The other day, I was thinking about what I consider a defect of character, where I get really wrapped up in what's going on in the world. And I was thinking to myself, it would be good for me to be more accepting and not fight that. And that thought just went through my head. And then as I'm reading later, Richard Rohr's Falling Upwards, and I come across this. It says that most frontal attacks on evil just produce another kind of evil in yourself, along with a very inflated self-image to boot that incites a lot of pushback from those you have attacked. And that's exactly some of the stuff that was going on in my life. And then I was just in my regular daily stuff, I ran across I can't remember if it was Ian Mobsey or if it was Marshall Davis talking about non-resistance. And that was really what I needed to hear. And then today we're going to talk about the first two lines are, when we look at things in the light of Tao, nothing is best, nothing is worse. So it's like I put a signal out there to the higher power of the universe. I need to work on this a little bit. And here, read this. This will help you think about that. So it's just one of those little things that happens quite frequently for people.
Thanks, Lou. I think you're right. When the student's ready, the teacher appears. Not when the teacher's ready, the student appears.
Yeah.
So when you're ready and open, there it is.
It is.
Yeah. It's such a freedom, isn't it, not to insist on everyone agreeing with you, or at least know what you think if they don't agree and how wrong they are.
Yeah. I can tell them about it too.
Oh, yeah, me too. Yeah, oh, yes. I've got all my facts. It doesn't matter what facts you have.
No.
It's amazing. And it's not that it makes me live in more peace. It's not about them. It's really all of recovery ultimately makes my life better. I know we're taught that, well, we realize the thread through everything is compassionate living. That's what draws us to the path. That's what allows acceptance, all these things that cause fruit in our life that we're really trying to cultivate through externals that can't be cultivated through those externals. And when we're open, it's amazing. And isn't it really all about stopping the resistance?
It is. And it's the serenity prayer, right?
Yes.
Things I cannot change, except the things I cannot change. There's a lot I can't change. I want to. By golly,
It's
I'll
like
get right in there.
like the seesaw, Lou, where, used to I thought we had all these things I could change, and there was very little that I could not change. And then over time, that seesaw's gone the other direction when there's not very much I can really change. I can surrender, but as far as change, it's much more limited than what I wouldn't go as far as say I can change nothing, but it starts with the surrender of everything. Really, it's where that's the point, not being God's man of faith and power.
And those things we can change, it seems, is usually through something like compassion rather than argument or lecturing or those kinds of things. Compassion changes people. Like the example of the elevator, buddy.
Yeah, we were talking about before we went on about the May 9th daily reflection. I think it's titled Walking Through Fear. The essence of the story is a lady had a fear of elevators. She decided she was going to walk through her fear. She went to the elevator. She was taking action. And when she entered the elevator, there was a lady cowered in the corner of that elevator, afraid to be on the elevator. And so she went and comforted her. And by her giving comfort, she was comforted. There's a beatitude that talks about that. It says, being full of care, we find ourselves cared for. I think
it wasn't another person. It wasn't another person's compassion towards her. It was her own compassion towards somebody else that helped her heal that thing with the elevators for her.
Yeah, and the thing is, Lou, it's all the same compassion. We think we're comforting them, but in reality, we're comforting ourselves. That's the part that when I finally realized, I said, wow. That's why this works. We're all one big body. So when my hand puts food in my mouth, my hand feels better. My hand were to have a consciousness. It's the same thing. Same thing. Thank you. That was good. All right. Our story today, unless there's anything else we need to discuss before the story. Okay. You going to read that first stanza for us, Lou?
Yes. Great and small. When we look at things in the light of Tao, nothing is best. Nothing is worse. Each thing seen in its own light stands out in its own way. It can seem to be better than what it is compared with on its own terms. But seen in terms of the whole, no one thing stands out as better. If you measure differences, what is greater than something else is great. Therefore, there is nothing that is not great. What is smaller than something else? Small. Therefore, there is nothing that is not small. So the whole cosmos is a grain of rice, and the tip of a hair the tip of a hair is as big as a mountain. Such is the relative view.
Thank you, Lou. When we look at things in the light of Tao, nothing is best, nothing is worst. The light of Tao in this light.
Buddy, what's standing out for me and is that word differences. And I just had this thought of, it's really a simpler and more peaceful way to look at things. It's not being better or worse, but just being different. Kind of takes out that good and bad that we can assign to things, or I can.
Yeah, me too.
The same thing stood out for me. The first thing I thought of was, me judging people's actions or their beliefs or their opinions, listening to something they say and thinking, that's right or that's wrong or that's dumb or, that's brilliant, or, looking at what they do and thinking that's dumb. Why did they do that? Or, they're lazy. They're not pulling their weight. Just letting people live their lives and have their beliefs and, listening to them and, they believe this, they believe that, they have this opinion, they have that opinion, they do this, they do that. And, I know when I'm in that frame of mind, I can learn from people better. I can investigate my own beliefs instead of, being fixed and rigid in my beliefs. I I can watch what somebody does and, not be envious or jealous of them, but learn from them. How do they do that? I'd like to be more like that. So it's, letting people do what they do, believe what they believe, say what they say, I find is best for them and best for me.
I was reminded, Drew, of that phrase we hear in recovery, that I judge myself by my intentions. I judge you by your actions.
Yeah.
That's not an equal judgment.
No, not at all.
We don't know what others intend. So why are we and the judgment I'm talking about really has no real bearing most of the time on our life. This is mostly interaction judgment that has not. This is where our opinion, and this is very much what Lou was talking about in the beginning, which is another synchronistic moment. The things I judge, the majority of those things do not affect me whatsoever if I let them go, pass on judging. It says each thing, okay, first, we look at things in the light of the Tao. When we do that, nothing's better, nothing's worse. Okay, I can see that. It just is. It's just what is in this moment. Next, it says that each thing is seen in its own light. It stands out in its own way. It can seem better than what it's compared with, than what is compared with it on its own terms. It can look like a better thing, but everything is individual. I don't take one thing and I need to make sure that it's apples for apples. Now you're looking at one thing like this and another like this in its own light, but it says then, but seen in terms of the whole of everything, no one thing stands out as better. Or you could say no one thing stands out as worse. You'd say that too. It reminds me of that film strip. If we look at consciousness as a film strip, where let's say each frame is one moment, there's only that frame. There is no other November 8th, 2025, 9:25, 31 seconds, 32 a.m. Okay, there's not another 11/8/25, 9:25 of those seconds to compare it to. It's a different one now. So we can't compare one to say this version's better than this version because there's not another version of this moment to compare it to. So with that in mind, there is no better moment than this moment or worse moment because there is no one to compare that one to. They're not the same. That's how I've realized that helps me at this moment to realize how I can grasp this. Lou?
I think another kind of thinking along those same lines, buddy, it seems to me that it's saying like everything is unique. Everything is its own unique manifestation of the Tao. It's all the Tao, but it's displaying itself in this particular way at this particular moment. Whether I like it or not, it's unique. It's not something that it may be different on the surface, but it's all the Tao underneath it. And there's some beauty in that, I think, too. There's some beauty in that we're all a different manifestation, a different appearance, a different representation of the Tao. Even if my human nature doesn't necessarily appreciate that, it's still what it is. And if I can step back a little bit and see it as that, as the flip side of the coin, as the yang to the yin, then it's probably closer to what the Tao really is. That tip of the hair, that small seed, or it could represent itself as a butterfly or as a mountain. And they're not really that comparable on the surface.
Thank you, Lou. It's kind of like if we looked at everything as one body. My little toe is important to my body. It has a function, but it's not the same function as my eyes. Does it mean my eyes are better than more of a part of the body than the little toe is? No, it's all part of the body. Maybe I could kind of apply that in this scenario as well, that it's all part of the whole. When have I learned the most in life? It has been when things are difficult. I hate to say that. I wish it were the opposite, but it's not. So are difficult things necessary? Yes. You could say at times in some situations, the difficult thing was better than the easy thing if you look at outcomes. So I'm not capable of determining what's good or bad or judge. This one's a lot about judging, I think, talking about great and small. I'm judging what's great. I'm judging what's small. but it's always relative.
This is definitely a verse for nonconformists, which, Taoism is pretty big on anyway, but, celebrating our differences and being tolerant of others and, not striving to conform or striving to make others conform. It reminds me, my wife teaches environmental education to elementary school kids up to 10, 11 years old. And we talked about how the kids that she teaches, she's noticed that they're much more tolerant of each other's differences than kids our age were when we were that age. She and I are about the same age. We were born. We're both in our mid 40s, and when we were kids, we definitely, both of us, remember everyone really needed to conform and not stand out, and not really be different in any way. The nail that sticks up gets hammered down, that sort of thing. But she said the kids that she teaches, they're all much more tolerant of each other, and they enjoy standing out, and they don't get bullied for it. So that gives us a little more hope for the future.
That's good. Thank you, Drew. I was looking for a Tao verse. I'll just go with this one. This is verse 27. The master is available to all people and doesn't reject anyone and doesn't waste anything. This is called embodying the light. We have a light reference there's one that says all of his distances are near. That's the one I was really looking for, but I'm not seeing it, so we'll move on. So the whole cosmos is a grain of rice, and the tip of a hair is as big as a mountain. Such is the relative view. Am I still measuring differences? Used to, every time I met someone, the first thing I did was determine how I'm better than they are. And if I couldn't do that, I came up with excuses why. This is saying let those things go. Let those things go.
Boy, my brain would go in the opposite direction and still does. Rather than, how am I better than this guy? It was much more, self-conscious in ways, that noticing that this guy's better than me in this way, and this way, and this way, and, feeling inadequate and inferior and, envious or jealous or resentful or something like that. And that's not a very peaceful way to live. Definitely increased my social anxiety because I didn't want to go out and meet people if that was what the result was going to be, which made me want to escape from those feelings if I did go out. And what's a good way to do that?
Right.
We've all been there.
That comparing my insides to others' outsides.
Yeah.
That's always the worst.
So that has been very, very good for my sobriety, is just, accepting, not doing the comparing. I'm not saying I never do it. I definitely do, but it's down 90%. And, being happy for others, the things that they have or the traits that they have, attributes they have, or the problems they don't have. It helps me just stay calmer in the moment and stay a little bit more joyful and peaceful. And when I'm in that way, I don't want to escape from being that way.
Thank you, Drew. I totally agree. Giving up that need to be right, or opposite of that, need to be wrong.
In our weekly meditation group I go to, there's a little saying, it's probably about a minute long, kind of not a prayer, but something like a request for an intention as we go into the meditation. And part of it is that we want to be released from the superiority complex, the inferiority complex, and the equality complex. And I know I've suffered from all of those throughout the years. Inferiority most of all, but that part always strikes me when we say it.
Just opening our heart to those things and not being closed off is huge in this journey. Anything else from that first stanza? I think probably move on to the next one. If not, what are we told in recovery? Look at our similarities, not our differences. I think that's applicable to this first stanza as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Second one. You can break down walls with battering rams, but you cannot stop holes with them with a battering ram. All things have different uses. Fine horses can travel 100 miles a day, but they cannot catch mice like terriers or weasels. All creatures have gifts of their own. The white-horned owl can catch fleas at midnight and distinguish the tip of a hair. Can extinguish the tip of a hair, but in bright day it stares helpless and cannot even see a mountain. All things have varying capacity. All things have their purpose, Consequently, he who wants to have right without wrong, order without disorder, does not understand the principles of heaven and earth. He does not know how things hang together. Can a man cling only to heaven and know nothing of earth? They are correlative. How do I pronounce it? Is that right? Correlative?
Relative? That's how I'd say it.
Okay.
Correlative?
Correlative?
Yeah, slow it down a little bit, Drew.
Yeah.
Co-relative. They're much alike. Okay.
There you go.
They are much alike. To know one is to know the other. To refuse one is to refuse both. Can a man cling to the positive without any negative, in contrast to which it is seen to be positive? What? Can a man cling to the positive without any negative, in contrast to which it is seen to be positive? If he claims to do so, he is a rogue or a madman. So to see the positive, there has to be negative there. You have to have a sense of that.
But that reminds me of the yin and the yang.
Yeah, Lou had a good story about that too, actually, that he shared with me.
I posted it on our Facebook page too, buddy.
Good.
My little 10-year-old grandson talking about yin and yang.
What was that?
There's a video just of my son and my grandson were sitting around the fire last night, and I don't know how they got on the topic, but my grandson was describing to my son the nature of yin and yang. He had it pretty close to what I think too.
Yeah. What'd your grandson think about it?
Well, it's on the Facebook page. Basically, he was saying that if you see things as negative now, have hope, because there's always a balance in life. And if things are going negatively for you now, by the very nature of life, they will be going positive. You can expect a positivity to balance that out. And if you're seeing positivity, you can expect a negativity to balance that out. Essentially saying all things are in balance.
Man, your grandson needs to join us.
I'm not sure he isn't a bodhisattva or something.
Yeah.
See how he hangs on to those thoughts and applies them in daily life.
I hope he does.
I think the application of that is compassionate living.
Uh-huh.
And I'll tell you how. In my thoughts, the way I accept the positive and accept the negative are the same way. They're not different. I accept both by accepting the moment as it is. If I don't accept the moment, I'm carried away by these things. I can be carried away in euphoria much easier. I can have much more difficult time with things being good than things being bad. That can be just as difficult for me, just as dangerous, maybe more so. I get lax. Instead of surrendering the fear I was feeling, I just will pacify it and stop doing the work to remove that fear. I'll coast. I'm sure I'm the only one that does that.
Buddy, for me, when those good things come, it's easy to get into obsession.
I got some I want more.
Yeah, that's it. But the bad stuff, it's just easy to sit there in that dirty diaper. Woe is me.
Or when things start getting bad, I start buckling down and doing what I should be doing. Should be doing the whole time. I can be sensitive to when my peace leaves, though. If I'm in a place of peace.
Yeah.
If I can be, was that sarcasm, Brian?
No.
Not all the time.
No.
Just sometimes.
Yeah.
I can feel when the peace leaves now and take corrective action before it becomes a shitstorm.
Yeah. I told my wife the other day, I said, I'm just not happy with where my spiritual condition is at this moment. Like, I feel like I'm running out of fingers to count things that are bad.
Yeah.
But it's good that we recognize that instead, versus just being blind to it and doubling down of what doesn't work.
Yes.
Yeah, I do think this verse so far is really helpful for having me recognize how my thoughts about other people affect myself so much. Whether it is me comparing myself to them or me comparing them to how I think they should be, the frustration that comes with, not only seeing somebody do something I don't want them to do, but then the frustration of trying to get them to act differently. That's just beating my head against a wall, allowing people to be themselves, allowing people to do what they want to do, as long as it's not, harmful to to me, or, I'm seeing that they're actively harming somebody kicking a dog, I'm not going to just walk by him and say that guy's kicking a dog. I need to allow him to kick the dog. But 99% of the time, that's not an issue. The things that I'm wishing people would do differently, or judging people for, they're things that really don't affect me at all. Or if they do, then it's just because I'm letting them affect me. I can recognize that those things really don't affect me, and I can go about living my own life, focus on cleaning up my own side of the road, focus on the splinter, the log in my eye instead of the splinter in the other person's eye.
Thank you, Drew. Yeah, go ahead, Luke.
Sometimes I think that I can see past the log in my eye just enough to go look really hard for it in somebody else's.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's my job, Lou. Isn't it yours?
Well, I seem to have a tendency to kind of go looking for a fight, go looking for something to complain about instead of just sitting there and letting it come to me. I'm going to go find it, and then I'm going to judge it. It's not enough that I sit here and things come to me and I judge. I got to seek them out in order to set things straight.
Self-righteousness feels good.
Yes, it does for a while.
That feeling of being right.
Yeah.
But there's no peace and joy in it. There's no peace and joy in that.
No, it's very, very fleeting. And then you have to look for it more and more. I mean, it is kind of like a drug.
Its origin really is fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so much of why I'm an Al-Anon, is that sort of desire to be self-righteous. I'm so good, I'll fix somebody else.
Man, I was thinking about my two sons, and I've heard people over the years talk about, having, two children, and they're both like polar opposites. And hearing that, I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But when it's your own, and then you want to compare the one to the other, and you want him to have the same things that you perceive the other one has, man, it's just it can be a real mess. It can definitely steal my serenity.
That's going in and trying to control for an outcome you feel would be good for them.
Yeah.
And an outcome that wouldn't embarrass you.
Yeah. That's it.
Or that's how you've heard my story about that. So yeah, that's how I look at it. Now I'm gauging your intentions by the story you just told. See, I do the same thing.
I feel like I need to go get Brandy and ask her to come in here and sit on this one with me.
No, I hadn't thought of it. I'm not a parent, so I didn't look at any of this stuff through the eyes of a parent. But man, Brian, I bet if you and Brandy go through this, what we just read, and talk about it in terms of how you look at your sons, and maybe compare your sons to each other, how you think they should be, that could get real deep real quick.
Yeah. And especially when you look at them and you say, I don't want them to be like me.
Uh-huh.
See, that's the fear probably that's behind the whole deal.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
They've just got to, I know with my children, I had to just let go and let them find their own way. Now, there were boundaries, of course.
Yeah.
Like what you're talking about, Drew. Hey, somebody's kicking a dog. Now you can't take matters in your own hands, or you'll be the one in jail. So
no, in Texas you can.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I'm probably okay in Alabama, but most places
I think you
not.
are.
But you could at least call animal control and let them deal with it. There's some action to take there, but that's not really the kind of judging, though, like you were talking about. That's not the judging would be if you start talking about what a effing idiot this guy was. He's a worthless piece of crap. He's breathing good air somebody else could be breathing. Now that's getting it over in the judgment.
Mm-hmm.
If you can leave that stuff off and take appropriate action, so be it. But you get over into that, then you've got problems.
Yeah, there is a benefit from separating the actor from the actions. Realizing that this person is causing suffering because he is suffering.
Yes.
And, kind of giving some, not excusing the behavior, but giving some compassion to the person behind the behavior.
But, the thing is, in a situation like you're talking about, you don't have to do that at all. You just call animal control.
Yeah.
And you're done. You don't have to pass judgment on the guy. It doesn't matter. You're passing judgment on the action that doesn't need to be, and stay out of the rest of it. We add all those other things in when we don't have to. That's where the problem for me is. When you're talking about acceptance, it's not about doing nothing, letting people run over you, all of that is just seeing the situation for what it is.
Do the next right thing. You don't have to have a symposium on it in your brain.
Exactly, Lou. Exactly. And when I can see it more clearly, then I can see whether there's action to take or not. Is this any of my business, really?
I really need to teach this guy a lesson.
I need to teach this guy a lesson.
The ego.
Yes. Let his actions teach him a lesson. Most of the time, we can stay out of it in many situations, unless there's harm being done.
Mm-hmm.
And they will, if they're ready to hear, appropriate situations they will find themselves in appropriate situations to curve the action.
There are natural consequences for actions. Consequences will happen.
That doesn't mean that we turn our back to something bad going on. I think it's more in life, let's say real life situations, okay? Drawing it back down to our own experience, especially with new folks in the program, new guy in the program, everything's got to be his way. He's got all this anger that's right under the surface, ready to come out. And I came across one of those guys last week, and he was kind of insulting me a little bit. And for some reason, I didn't take it personally. I just let it just flow off. Now, afterward, I took it a little personally and had to pray a little bit, for him, But during the situation, I said, I know this is not him. This is all of this stuff coming at him. I still remember how I felt when I first came in. And there was a lot of that to deal with. And I said, I can't fix this guy like you were talking about, Lou. I can't fix him. So I just didn't respond. And I think it made him madder because I wouldn't jump in. And it wasn't nothing major, but I just,
But you sponsor and have sponsored a number of people. It would seem that in some of the things I do has similar kinds of role in it. And it seems like the time to take action on these kinds of things is when you feel called to and you're equipped to. Sometimes you feel like you should take action, but you don't have the magic words. You don't have the right. You don't have. You're not prepared to enter into that. And other times, someone might be prepared to handle the guy kicking the dog in a way that actually makes things better. Where we get into trouble a lot of the time is where we come at things with our solution or with our frame of reference, other than helping the person find their own route out of it.
Yeah, especially talking about recovery itself. I'm not referring to the dog scenario. Unless someone asks me to be their sponsor, I try to keep my opinions to myself. Because I remember early in recovery, somebody'd give me their opinion, and my response, did I ask you to be my sponsor? I don't think I did. That was exactly, may have had a couple of superlatives in there to add to it, But that's exactly what I would do. I said, I didn't ask for your opinion. And they just laugh. And I said, yeah, now go blank yourself. I don't. And I know not to overstep in those situations because till people are ready to hear, they're not ready. Sometimes, not very often, I'll feel a nudge to say something to someone that I don't sponsor, but not very often. Not very often. It's not up to me to fix people. Even if I know what they need to do, in quotes, even if I know what worked for me, it's not necessarily the right time to share that or the right person to share it with them.
Especially if they don't want any feedback.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They didn't ask my opinion.
Yeah.
Yesterday at work, I was just in the middle of work and an IT worker came walking through. And I don't know why, but he just started talking to me about politics, really strongly. And I completely disagreed with what he was saying. And old me would have gotten into an argument with him and pulled out statistics and all that. But instead, I just kind of let him go on for a few seconds and then said, I got a lot of work to do. I'm sorry, and just put my earbuds in and went back to working. And he walked off. So I was happy how I handled that. I didn't try to change his beliefs or anything. I was on the clock. That's not what I get paid to do. just told him. I also didn't just sit there and let him monologue at me for half an hour. I was totally happy just letting him know now's not the right time, and going back to do the work that I get paid to do.
Nothing wrong with boundaries.
No. And I'm also glad that I didn't just sit there and stew about how dumb he is or how wrong he is, or have an imaginary argument in my head when he walked off. I just let it go and went back to work. Just, this is, like you said at the beginning, buddy, this is this moment, and this is what I need to do in this moment.
I don't recall ever having a political argument with someone who highly disagreed with me that anything changed.
Right.
I just don't recall that. So I try to stay out of those. And I realize too that what everyone believes is what they feel is best, no matter what it is. If they thought what they believed was not best, they would change what they believe. So when I keep that in mind, I can't attack someone who has a different thought or belief about anything, because that's just their formed experiences over time. That's what they feel. Not very often I get into those discussions. I try to stay away from them now. When used to, I would invite them, kind of like what Lou was talking about too earlier. I try not to invite those now. Maybe what I believe is not best.
Maybe it isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just don't know. So why can't I just be open-hearted and be accepting of that kind of thing?
I was listening to an interview the other day, and they were talking about AI, and the guy was saying, well, somewhere this AI's got to be programmed. And there's, if you ask it X, Y, Z, that may be good for you, but it may not be for me. And where do we come up with the answer? And I just had this damn sinking feeling that's like, holy shit, like this is not good. You know what I mean? And I don't want to go too into details, but it just, what works for you may not work for me. And that's just such a difficult spot to be in.
Well, we just can't take the advice given by AI as seriously as I'm prone to, because I use AI all the time.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Taking that human element out of it, though.
Well, this is the thing. When it tells me something, I think it's telling me, I've had to take a step back. I thought it was telling me what was correct, when in reality, at times, I had told it to do this and this research first, give me everything you answered, give me this verification, and all of this. Then it stops doing it, takes shortcuts. And I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? Well, you're right. I didn't do, and I'm like, I can't trust your answers. So I've gotten spanked a few times. So now I don't trust the answer I'm given. I confirm everything but it's great for little stuff. But if it's a big thing, I don't. And the thing is, I have to say that 95% of the time that I get angry is with AI. Now that's pretty bad.
I think that's a sign.
Yeah, that is a sign, Drew, because I want one answer and it tells me all this stuff that's not correct. And then I get pissed off and go all caps and start cussing it.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one that's argued with AI.
Oh my God. And then it comes, what I hate is it comes back with, you're right. And I'm like, don't tell me I'm effing right.
I think the algorithms.
You screenshot it, print it out.
I could print it out later today because it does it every day. You're right. I said, don't give me no excuses.
I think the algorithms are designed to keep us engaged, just like the other social media kinds of things. And oftentimes it's designed to try to tell us the answer we want, just like human beings, just to keep us happy and keep us online with it. Sometimes I have to, if I'm doing the AI, I have to say, okay, well, tell me the exact opposite. What would be the reasons for believing the exact opposite of what you just shared?
Yeah, I think it all goes back to trusting our own wisdom and our own experience, and the wisdom and experience of people who we actually know or trust, rather than a program designed by a multi-trillion-dollar corporation.
The other day, it was like an hour waste of time telling me to do this and this, and then it wouldn't work. Once I got done with what I said, okay, you just wasted another hour of my time. How are you going to make this up to me? What do you mean? I said, my time's worth X number of dollars an hour. You just cost me X number of dollars. What can we do about this? And it was amazing the rabbit holes that went down trying to, but Anyway, enough of that. Let's stop there for today. I think that's a good stopping place. Yeah, can we look for similarities rather than differences? Can we stop? Can we be conscious when we judge others' action rather than being open to their intention? That's great negotiation. In negotiation, that is huge. What do these people really want? Maybe what they're saying is not what they really want. What do they want? And if you can get down to what they want and meet that need, and that's a lot about looking past the action and getting out of the judgment business, that unproductive judgment, I guess would be a way to say it, which is, I think, almost all of it.
Getting past there's a winner and a loser.
Yeah. Yes.
Going from judgment to discernment.
And acceptance.
Going from control to noticing, just letting.
Allowing.
Yes.
Instead of thinking of differences, thinking of uniqueness, celebrating that even though the horse can't catch mice, it's still nice that it does what it does.
Flipping it to gratitude for what it is, right?
Yeah. Acceptance for what it is.
Not trying to fit square pegs into round holes.
Yep.
And not picking up a bigger hammer. It doesn't work.
Well, I like starting my weekend with a bunch of dudes just sitting around talking about tolerance and accepting our difference.
What a great start to the weekend.
It is.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys. I'm going to rank you from 1 to 10.
Yeah.
I want to know, Lou, I want 10 reasons why we're different. That's what I want. No, not really. All right, my friends. Well, thank y'all for a good discussion. We'll take it from there next week. Thank you. Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.